Hey folks, in today's class I'm going to talk about chapter number 4. And before I start this class, if you know about this chapter, if you think that you are perfect with the concept of this chapter, you don't need to watch this video. All right, now let's talk about linear correlation and regression. In this chapter we're going to learn three things. One is the R, second is R square, and the third one is the linear equation. R is called as coefficient of correlation, R square is called as coefficient of regression, and then the third thing we're going to learn about is, as I said, is the linear equation y equal to mx plus c. Y equal to mx plus c, that's the equation. Sometimes people write it as mx plus b also, which means one and the same thing. Before I jump into talking about how you're going to find this value, first of all, we will talk about what does coefficient of correlation represents. Okay, so this chapter is mainly about graphing. So when we talk about graphing, there are two things in a graphing. One is x-axis, another is y-axis, and then we try to draw a graph between uh, these two axes. Now, x values are always called as independent variable. Independent variable. And these one are called dependent. Dependent variables. Okay, so when you're going to plot a graph between x and y values, from there you will be able to get some value of r. The r value will help us in finding out what kind of a relation exists between x value and y value. Is it a strong relation between x and y value? Is it a weak relation? Is there a no relation? So those things we can find out with the help of coefficient of correlation. Now let's look into this slide. Now down here, uh, if the R value comes out to be positive. Now, I haven't taught you how to find out the R value. We will talk about it later on, how to find out the R value. First of all, let's look into the meaning of it. So if you figured out the R value as 1, that means there is a perfect positive correlation between X and Y values. So these are X values and these are Y values. So whatever data is given to you in terms of X and Y, then and you got the R value as 1, it means there is a perfect and positive correlation between X and Y values. Now, if R values comes out to be between 0.7 to 1, that means there is a strong positive correlation between X and Y values. If the R value is between 0.3 to 0.7, then it means there is a moderate to weak positive correlation between the x and y values. And if the r value comes out to be -1, negative means the line will change its direction. Here the line was inclined towards the right, here the line is inclined towards the left. So same process, only difference is r value was +1, here r value is -1. So what does this mean? A perfect negative correlation exists between x and y values. And same process, strong negative correlation exists between x and y values. And down here, a moderate to weak correlation exists between the values when the r value lies between -0.7 to -0.3. And then there is very weak correlation if the value is between zero point 0.3 to -0.3 to +0.3. So in this one, weak or almost no correlation. And if r value is 0, then there is no linear correlation exist between the values. Now, how to find out the r value? That's the next question. So let's look into this question, which is on to the next slide. So down here we are given a monthly premium quoted by an insurance company for 10-year term, which is 100,000 100,000 critical illness policy was collected from a sample of 12 adult female non-smokers between the age of 25 and 55. So the data is given to me. I wanted to plot it on XY graph and then figure out the R value. And then I wanted to interpret the meaning of R value too. All right, so let's look into this question. How are we going to solve for R? So this is the data given to me. First thing I'm going to do is I'll select the data and then click onto the insert, and then I'm going to click onto this icon. I'm using the Windows. If you have a Mac, your settings will be a little different. Come and see me if you couldn't figure out how to draw these graphs. So I click onto this one, and then under the recommended chart, it is the first one. So if it is not the first one on your computer screen for the recommended charts, you can click onto the all charts, go to the XY scatter, always select the unicolor one, because I don't want both the values X and Y values represented on the chart. So it's a graph between X and Y values, so always I'm going to select the unicolor one. So this is the graph. I'm going to select and press OK. So I got the graph now. Then I'm going to click onto this plus sign, and then I'm going to click onto this trend line. Once I get the trend line, I'm going to click onto the more options, and then I will click onto these two things: display the equation on the chart and display the R square value on the chart. I'm going to move them here. All right, so I have the equation of the chart, which is the third topic of our chapter number 4, which we will talk about later on. But now I have a R square value. Notice this is not the R value. This is a R square value. So I will write it as R square. So R to the power of 2. The R square is also called as coefficient of determination. I can show you here. That is this thing which we'll talk about in the next video too. All right, coming back to the R value. So R square we figured out, which is 0.0.7389. That's the value of R square. I wanted to find the value of R. R value will be equal to, R value will be equal to square root of this value, because this is R square. So the square root of this value. Now that came out to be 0.8594. I can round it to 4 decimal places. Round this number, comma, to 4 decimal places. That's going to give me the value of R. Now, if I look into this slide, which was here, if the R value lies between 0.7 and 1, it means strong positive correlation exists. So down here, I'm going to call that there is a strong positive correlation between X and Y values. Now, one thing you must notice is that in this case, R value came out to be positive. Every time, whenever you're going to square root, your computer is going to show you R value as positive. But how will you figure out when to take a R value as positive or a negative? So if the slope of the line which you've drawn, the trend line which you've drawn here, if this is positive, positive means inclined to the right. If it is like in this direction, somewhere in northeast direction, if this is east, this is north on the navigation system, it is something like this. It is always positive, and R value will be the positive. If the slope is somewhere in northwest direction, something like this, in this direction, okay, or on the graph, if I erase it and try and draw here, if the equation of a line comes like this, okay, then you're still gonna get the R square value as positive, and R value, when you're gonna square root, that value will also come out to be positive. But you need to put a negative sign by looking at the trend line, that now there is a strong negative correlation. If this value was 0.8596 with the negative, then I would have called it as a strong negative correlation between X and Y value. So hopefully you were able to understand how to figure out the coefficient of correlation. And what does it helps us in finding? It helps us finding out, as I said, what kind of a relation exists between x and y values. So that's about it for the first part. In the second part, I will talk about our square value and the linear equation. Till then, goodbye.